You've pictured it 1,000 times. Not just the big dream, the business, the money, the success, the completely different life. Sometimes it's smaller than that. The 15 minutes of reading you keep promising yourself. The one gym session you keep pushing to tomorrow. The calmer, more confident version of you. The one with the personality you actually want, that only ever shows up in your head. Same mind, same trick. Whether it's a 5-year dream or a 5-minute habit, you've never started once. And somewhere, quietly, you've stopped asking why. Stay with this for a second, because it gets stranger than you'd expect. Somewhere in your brain, right now, there's a reward waiting for you. Not for finishing any of it, for imagining it. Here's the part almost nobody tells you. Brain scans show that picturing a win lights up nearly the same reward pathway as actually living it. Not a similar feeling, nearly the same signal. So ask yourself something uncomfortable. What if your brain already got paid? Quietly, secretly. And that's exactly why you never had to start. In 2009, a psychologist ran an experiment that predicted this before the fantasy even started. Peter Gollwitzer had people announce their goals out loud, to a stranger, in a room. You'd expect that to build accountability. Instead, something backwards happened. The people who said their goal out loud worked less hard afterward, not more. Somewhere inside them, being seen as the kind of person who does this had already been collected. The doing itself quietly became optional. That single finding should bother you more than it does, because this isn't a small glitch. Psychologists call it the intention-behavior gap, and it's one of the most consistent problems ever measured in human behavior. Across dozens of studies, how badly you want something barely predicts whether you'll do it. Wanting explains less than a third of what happens next. So if wanting was never the missing piece, what is? To answer that, you have to go back further than any study, back before goals had names. Back to a version of your brain that never once got to imagine a 5-year plan, a bank balance that finally feels like enough, or the confident, put-together person you keep almost becoming. For most of human history, trying something new could kill you. A hunt gone wrong, a confrontation with the wrong person. Your ancestors' brains built a quiet filter, one that treated real action as dangerous and imagined action as free. A daydream about the hunt cost nothing. The actual hunt could cost everything. Guess which one the brain learned to reward? Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio found something that makes this even harder to shake off. The brain doesn't cleanly separate an imagined outcome from a real one, not emotionally. A vivid enough daydream can trigger a genuine sense of reward, almost identical to the real thing, without a single ounce of the risk that used to come with actually reaching for it. So here's the moment where everything you've believed about yourself needs to be rewritten. If imagining the version of you who reads, who shows up, who finally begins, feels like a real reward, and attempting it feels like a real threat, your brain isn't broken when it keeps choosing the fantasy. It's doing exactly what kept a hesitant ancestor alive long enough to have children. You were never lazy. You were never undisciplined. A survival system built for danger has just been quietly running your mornings instead. But if that were the whole story, you'd have no way out. It isn't the whole story. In 2011, psychologist Gabriela Oettingen tested something that changes everything. She found that people who only imagined the positive outcome, with nothing standing in the way, performed worse than people who did one specific thing differently. They pictured the win. Then, immediately after, they pictured the exact obstacle blocking them. Not a vague obstacle, a specific one. The exact moment they'd want to quit. The exact excuse they'd reach for. The tired evening, the busy morning, the voice that says tomorrow instead. That one addition breaks the ancient bargain completely. A pure fantasy hands your brain the reward for free. But naming the real obstacle, in specific, uncomfortable detail, removes the shortcut entirely. The daydream stops being enough because your brain now knows precisely what's still missing. And the only way left to close that gap is to actually move toward the thing. So look at everything sitting quietly inside you right now differently. The big dream you've mentally built and rebuilt 100 times. This small habit you keep almost starting. None of it was ever about ambition or discipline or willpower. It was a brain doing its job, handing you a safe reward for a risk it still quietly treats like a wounded animal in tall grass. You don't need more motivation. You never did. You need to interrupt the shortcut. Picture the win if you want. You always will. But don't stop there. Sit, just for a moment, in the exact obstacle waiting on the other side of it. The specific excuse, the specific fear, the exact place you always stop. That's the part your brain has been skipping, because skipping it felt just as good as finishing. You've pictured it 1,000 times, the big dream, the money, the success, the person you keep meaning to become, the small habit, the version of you that only exists in your head. You've never started once. Now you know exactly why. And maybe that's the hardest part. Not that you're lazy, not that you don't care. You care so much that your brain built a way to protect you from ever finding out what happens if you try. The dream stayed safe. You stayed still.